Welcome to Hard Power Conversations. Today, my guest is Joanna Walden. She is a visionary transformation specialist, multidimensional channel, speaker, author of the Inside Hustle, a mystical misfits travel adventure into the unknown, and her new book, A Beautiful Radical Truth, Wisdom from Another Realm. After 20 years in advertising career, Joanna stepped into her role as a guide for others. She is one of my dear friends who now resides in her hometown of Auckland, New Zealand, holding the frequency and light there. And after a long career in the corporate world, Joanna now focuses on being a on her transformational consulting business and sharing her knowledge and voice with the world. She uses heart technology, travel to sacred sites, beautiful ceremonies that I admire from afar, channeled wisdom, consciousness practices, her ancient gong that we're going to talk about, sound healing, to navigate her path and guide others back to their mastery and back to their hearts. Welcome,
Yes.
Joanna. I am so excited to have you here. You're a gem, and I'm so happy that we get to have this conversation together.
Me too. After meeting each other online so long ago when we were the heart newbies, being like, oh, we've got some similar things going on. And you've always been such a dear friend in the ether since. I mean, so beautiful. Mm.
So, I would like to start this conversation by asking, how did the heart find you? Because the way that I found you was our connection around the heart.
Yes.
I received a message when I started on my journey about 4 years ago with all things heart, that there were others who received similar mission briefs, who were told that their work is around the heart, around heart technology. And you came into my Instagram sphere and into my awareness. And I think I reached out to you and I started following you straight away. So how did the heart find you? How did all of this start for you?
Well, I had always been a very big proponent of following my heart, for sure. And I left my corporate career, when I was working in advertising in New York, literally on a whim of the heart. I just knew there was something else for me. And so I've always been following my heart in a certain regard to lead me through my life, for sure. It hasn't necessarily been a logical journey. It has always been quite illogical and heart-based. But the real time that this started to ramp up for me was in 2017, when I get a lot of information from other realms in my dreams. And I had a lot of very significant dreams that year, but I was going through a period around July of 2017, I believe. And I had this dream, and I was sitting in a chair like I am right now. And these three giant light beings were surrounding me. And I was saying, what about this ancient healing modality? And they said, no. I was like, well, what about this meditation technique? And they said, no. And they said, it is always about the heart. It has only ever been about the heart, and it will only ever be about the heart. It is all about heart technology. Heart technology is the most relevant and effective tool on the planet right now. And I woke up, and their words were so clear. I wrote them down, and then I Googled heart technology, and a whole bunch of cardiac equipment came up and not much else. I mean, I'd never heard that word heart technology before. And that was fed directly from spirit through to me in that dream. And so then it took me literally on a vision quest of, okay, oh, heart technology, what does that even mean? How does that even apply? And I would get into these situations in my work with the natural world and with spirit and all of that kind of stuff that would kind of teach me about the heart and how you could use it. And things were just coming into my sphere to teach me all about the ways of the multidimensional heart technology that we are all have within us and aren't necessarily utilizing and operating at this point, but it's there waiting for us to crack into it and tap into it. And so that's how I really started focusing on that heart space. And, I heard a lot about that before, like, oh, it's all about the heart, focus on the heart. But until then, I was sort of like, it's a bit airy fairy and like peace, love, and mung beans and like, oh, whatever, like it just didn't really resonate with me how it was being taught before. Whereas now I've stepped into this space of using it as a multidimensional tool that's really interesting and has been really effective. And it's guiding me a lot in my journey and my work.
Your story is so eerily similar to mine. It's wild. I got woken up in the middle of the night and told that that was going to be my work. And I, in many ways, didn't quite follow it straight away. I did go for that modality and that meditation and everything because my mind was like, it can't be that simple. It can't be that simple. And
Right.
hearts are for Valentine's Day cards, like all the things. And but in the end, it is that simple. And we were designed in this way to, as in the human body was designed with a very smart built-in mechanism that is science is only scratching the surface with
Oh, yeah.
understanding it all. And I think Heart Math Institute is doing amazing research for it, but people like us or beings like us are here to bypass a lot of the science and go with what we are receiving and what we know to be the truth. Like we
Right.
know with every fiber of our being that this is the truth, and we're here to share it. And for many, that's what resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's interesting because the Institute of Heart Math sort of, when I delved into that after doing a lot of my own heart work, it was basically proving what
Proving
I was being taught, which was so cool, actually. There's something about the human experience that, like, this part certainly wants the validation, and I got it from
validation.
which was
Yeah,
nice. You sort of, I feel like you need a little bit of that on your journey if you're like wildly going into the unknown and, just following this thing. And, we're navigating this time where people are in a different space and not everyone is just open to like, oh, that feels resonant in my heart and I'm going to just roll with that. They want to know like things behind it. So it's been helpful from that perspective, I think, as well.
absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like on my path, somebody also recommended at the time Drumvalo Melchizedek, who did a lot of work on the heart in the earlier days and kind of paved the road for everybody else who will follow in a lot of this. And I think the wave of the volunteers of us who came to spread the message of the heart now is a more feminine way of accessing all of it, of making it accessible to the masses without really engaging the mind and trying to understand it so much, and really feeling the energetics and using all the extra tools that interest us, like sound. And speaking of sound, there is one tool you use that I am so intrigued about. And I would love to hear about your incredible gong that when I see a picture of it, when you post on Instagram about it, something just lights up for me about it. So can you share with us about your gong?
Absolutely. I mean, the reason I first thought about getting the gong was because I was running retreats and I realized that I needed to be very careful about the frequency of what I was creating, and everything needed to match and be on point. And so I'd been going to these beautiful gong bars that actually helped me write my book, Cacao Ceremony with Gong Bars, for months. And then I was just really enjoying the way that it was helping me progress and things like that. And so I was inspired to get a gong so that I could do sound healing at my retreats and sound journeys and go deeper into the experience that I was leading people into and the different frequencies. And I really just, it's really funny because everyone says, where did you get this gong? Because it's a 40-inch Atlantis gong. There's all sorts of different kinds of gongs at very different price ranges. And it's, you know, it's not a hugely romantic story. I like literally got it from gongsunlimited.com. But they are the best source of gongs, and we don't have a ton of gongs just on the market in New Zealand. It doesn't kind of work like that here. And so, funnily enough, when I went to their website and I started listening, the first one I listened to was a 40-inch Atlantis gong. And I was like, oh. And then, of course, I thought, no, that can't be it. It can't be the first one I listened to. And I went and listened to 100 other gongs aside from that. And I kept coming back to this Atlantis gong. And so I got it. It arrived and I did special blessing and sacred ceremony and got to know this gong. And then I have been really pulling from, you know, like past life experience of being a gong player, I believe, because I didn't ever do any official gong training because I didn't necessarily want to pollute myself with anything else that is out there. Rather wanted to do it intuitively myself. And so what started happening is I started seeing beings in the gong. And so these beings would sort of come forth to me, and there's all sorts of different beings in the gong. And there's the permanent fixtures of there's many different sort of, you know, sort of like elemental beings, angelic beings, lion beings, sometimes that are there. But then I get these other beings that come forward depending on the group that I'm working with, depending on what I'm doing and facilitating. And so, and interestingly, they almost like nod to me where to play my mallet. And sometimes I also get the messages, I'll see sacred geometry and I will use my mallets to create sacred geometry within my gong with the intention of sending it out. And then equally, when I am playing the gong and I've got a group behind me most of the time, I'm equally in a multidimensional way, weaving and playing with the energy behind me in a multidimensional sense through the gong, through my mallets, through everything that's going on. But I definitely get told the cadence of how to play, the sacred geometric patterns, and the beings in the gong sort of like sing out to me to say, over here, over here, over here, whatever, which is kind of funny. But when I talked to a musician about it, they said, well, Joe, you know, he saw music as color. And so he's like, you're just seeing it in your world, a frame of reference, because you work in this, you know, you have that kind of, you know, element to you. So you're seeing them as beings. I see them as color, but it's the same thing ultimately. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But the gong is very much not just about the basic sound healing principles. This is an interdimensional journey experience. And depending on where you're at, you know, I've had people coming in who work in like Akashic record reading, for example, work in the energy and spiritual space, who've said to me, holy, you know, moly, like you are doing something totally different with this gong. Like, I can't believe what is going on here, because they're seeing energetically what is happening. And it is very, very different to just going to a normal sound healing, because I'm channeling through different energetics and frequencies and tuning into different things that can be assisting right now and coming home to the true self, connecting with that heart, and really bringing us into more of a multidimensional understanding of ourselves, and also in a celestial galactic way, I believe it as well. So quite different from any other gong player. And when I go to other gong bars, it's quite different to how I play the gong as well. Yeah, it's so interesting. But the Atlantis part of the name, actually, just because I know you asked me about that a little earlier, it's called an Atlantis gong because it's a 40-inch bronze unlathed Chinese gong, which has been finished with seawater. So that's why they call it the Atlantis gong. And I haven't necessarily had specific Atlantis experiences with it, so to speak, but it is truly working in a sort of ultra-dimensional nature, I believe. Yeah.
Perhaps the Atlantis portion of it is where it's your mastery that is coming from that
Potentially.
that lifetime and coming back.
Right.
And I really liked what you said, and I'd like to highlight it for our listeners that you had that courage and discernment to say, yeah, I can go and get trained in this and get a piece of paper that certifies me as a gong player, or I can trust my this unfolding and my experience with it and allow spirit to teach me and guide me with this. And this is a message that I receive all the time. And I receive it for myself and I receive it for others, that we are here to channel new modalities. If only we can step outside of the paradigm of having to study under somebody so that I can become a master. And I'm here
Right.
to explore through play, through truly
Yeah.
co-creation with spirit. Because had
Yeah.
you gone to somebody who is very set in their ways and it's my way, or you go your own way, it would
Mhm.
have you would have maybe never allowed yourself to be open and see the beings, and you would have had to train yourself to see it in color. So i
Yeah,
I just
I
find
agree.
that as such an inspiration, and your whole path really has been that is who you are. You're a
Yeah,
rebel.
it really
You're a
has been.
rebel paving the way
It's
for, yeah.
it's so interesting because I was really strongly, every time I sort of was considering going down a pathway of a modality that's already in existence, or some kind of healing technique, I just kept getting no. And I've really come to know that that's why the heart is so important in this, because that is the access to the uniqueness that we are meant to bring onto this planet, and not be like everybody else, and not be pulling from the same, you know, necessarily ancient wisdom and teachings that have gone on millennia ago. We're here at a different time on the planet, at a different level of consciousness, with different skills and abilities to be doing something new. And, you know, there's a real push in that structure, matrix structure in society, that pushes you down into a path of picking up what everybody else is doing, or trying to be like everybody else in some way. And if we're really here in this space right now to birth a new world, like, we have to stop doing that. We have to be able to have courage to stand out on our own, to follow the guidance and mastery, be connected to that heart space, to literally lead us there and allow it to unfold as we go. Mm,
So this leads me on to my next question perfectly.
mm.
What exactly does it mean to you to live a life guided by the heart, powered by the heart, with the heart being what that generator that runs you? And how has it shown up in your life?
Yeah, I mean, the heart for me is, it's the central sun that guides us. It's the place of our deepest wisdom. It's the place we access our infinite nature. We access our divine mind through the heart. It's what allows us to drop into the 0 point. It is the place of true knowing above all else in the illusion of this reality. And it has so much power as an alchemist, for inner alignment, for visioning, for, accessing those other states of consciousness, for all of the guidance that comes through, that isn't necessarily going to be logical, representative in our reality of what the tried and tested methods are and all of that. It's going to be very different from that when we're connected into that space, and we have to be brave enough to go there. And so for me, the heart is so many different things. And I think maybe when living a heart-centered life, I think some of the most challenging thing that for everybody at the moment is keeping our heart open no matter what. and I think that is so tough in the most triggering of times. And when we're in this time like we are on the planet, where we are having a deep purge of all the old that we can't take with us, that is part of the conditioned matrix structures that we've taken on over many lifetimes, that are being moved on from, and us being brought back to our true nature underneath it all, actually, that's already in there in its beauty and wholeness, right? But so I think we've been just out of our hearts so often. We've been trained into the mind. We've been taught everything from this space. And so really being able to stay grounded in the heart, but also keep our heart open at the most challenging times that we're living through right now, and out of the judgment of the human experience of ourself as we're going through it, and all of the spectrum, the wealth of the spectrum of experience, when we don't always get it right, and sometimes we make big old muck ups. And it doesn't matter if we're on a spiritual path or not, or we're a teacher or not, or whatever, it still happens. We're all human. And so when we can keep our heart open no matter what, or if it closes down and we notice, then get back into that open-hearted space. I think that's super important. I think that's what it really means to live a heart-led life right now, because when you're not in this space and you're not utilizing it in any way, shape, or form, it's just going to work against us, really, because everything is pushing us more to be there, to be in this space, and to actually have the courage to just operate out of there in an unconditional way, religiously, actually.
Do you feel, because I do, and I'm just really interested to know for myself, do you feel a different physical sensation when your heart is open and fully activated and you are running your life from the heart? Does it feel physically, sensation-wise, different to you?
I think so. And especially if I'm going to sacred sites to do some work, I will sometimes get the fluttery, like I'll get a physical sensation, or I'll get pain in my heart space. I'll get pain. And I've noticed that there is definitely the physical kind of, and it's like, oh, okay, this needs to happen. Something big is happening here. You follow, you're like, oh, not like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack, or oh my God, like, no, oh, it's telling me something. Okay, this is going to be interesting, right? I'm ready to go. So I definitely feel like that visceral space. And I feel, sometimes we're in our emotional field, we're much more stable when we're in the heart space. I mean, we just are. And we're less likely to fall into, reaction and responding in a way that maybe we're not going to be proud of after, or any of that kind of stuff, when we are connected into that heart. And it just, yeah, it's a feeling as well as a physical kind of thing as well. It's like it's kind of like multi-layered in its resonance. But I feel, the first time I ever did like a heart coherence practice, for example, the really basic one, I felt the energy, because I was such a head person, drop into my heart, and I felt it. I could feel the presence, and I felt the center of my being was coming from here, not here. And that was a big deal for me back in the day, because I'd never felt that before. I'd done a ton of meditation, done a ton of this and that, never felt that before. So that was interesting to note. So I definitely feel you can viscerally feel it in different ways, for sure, when you are inhabiting that space.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And what you said, with when you visit sacred sites, you feel that. And I find that when guiding others through a meditation or when channeling energy myself, I feel that opening. And sometimes it is painful, like you said, because it literally feels like your physical body is expanding, like someone is doing heart surgery on you, open chest
Right.
surgery. And people always ask, well, how do I know if I'm in the heart, if I'm living from the heart? In day-to-day things, you may not have those sensations, but you will feel unshakable in your truth, in your sovereignty, in your power. And like you said, you'll find it much easier to respond from the heart instead of react from the wounds, trauma, old conditioning, whatever, that autopilot. And that really is why we do this work, because the heart invites us to be those better versions of ourselves, not necessarily as, oh, I'm spiritual and I do this and this, but truly holding that frequency of compassion, acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
non-judgment,
Mm-hmm.
peace. And the heart is here to bring us back to that and remind us that when we can just drop there and radiate that frequency for ourselves, because yes, there is service, there's humanity, there's planetary ascension, but really when we do it for ourselves and for those close to us, our experience, our reality changes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, everything is coming from our consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our
And the heart
whole
allows us to
spectrum
be
of
in that.
reality,
Yeah.
everyone in it is like very much coming from our consciousness, and we have to be able to connect here to be able to tap into that in the infinite space, you know. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
an interesting time, and just so important. Yeah.
So in your bio, you talk a lot, you talk about traveling a lot and traveling through exploring and finding. Would you say it was finding pieces of yourself, activating something in yourself? What does travel and these experiences provide for you?
Mm. Well, you know, my first book, The Inside Hustle, A Mystical Misfit's Travel Adventure into the Unknown, that was all about my personal journey of evolution, taking me around the world, starting in New York, then doing the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and then being in London for some times, some dark times actually, and then climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and then spending time in South America, and then being in New Zealand and that energy as well. And you know, I've always been a traveler. I've been drawn to places in the world since I was a lot younger, actually. And I didn't really realize, or nor was I intentionally doing anything specifically energetically or spiritually while I was there in my younger years. But then I sort of realized, oh, hold on. I'm attracted to all these stone circles and all these mystical places and things like that. And then when I stepped into this work and started connecting, then I was able to access more and find my own sacred sites actually in all of this. But you know, I do really feel like all of these spaces around the world that we are drawn to, they have the ability to, for us to pick up something to help us remember who we truly are on some level. Also, that we need to be there to deliver energy into that space, into that land. It is a give and take thing. And, you know, I don't necessarily, it's us activating ourselves in all of this and us also activating other parts of the planet, I think, in a different way. And so the magnetics are within us and they're being restored into a higher template, I believe, or a more expanded frequency when we are doing this work. And you know, it can be very different in the reasons that I'm drawn to places. You know, in the South Island, for example, I was drawn to a place and then I got my car stuck unexpectedly in this valley that was named the Waitaha Valley. And Waitaha is a very early Indigenous people of New Zealand. And there's a lot of spiritual energy around that. And I got trapped there. And then after I'd found a farmer to pull me out with a tractor, I sort of, you know, he was a young farm hand, and I said, I need to go down to the river. Can I go down your property? He said, yeah, of course. And so I went down and I saw an Indigenous person with a spear and spirit and a loincloth leaping over a fence and moving. And I thought, okay, I definitely am. I've been trapped here. I need to be here for whatever specific time right now. I'd been there for hours at this point, never intending to be. And then I went down to the river and I knew that I was there to clear some old dense energy that had probably been in place for spiritual protection a long time ago, but actually needed to go now. And so I went down there and I got nude because I love to do that. and I did all my, you know, my activating and my prayers and my chanting and my things and working in the multidimensional space. And I saw the energy literally physically leave the valley, and all of the clouds dissipated, and it all moved out of there. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. My work here is done. And I went back to the farmhand who was like, what were you doing down there? And I said, oh, well, you know, I was called to do some clearing and I saw the spirit guy and I think it's all done now, you know. And he said, oh, well, there's been some really weird stuff that's happened in this place. So thank you for doing that, you know, so there you go. But equally, other times it's about, you know, receiving different codecs and things. You know, recently I went to the United States for 3 months, and not through my intention, I was actually drawn to a lot of the ancient Pueblo sites. And Spirit 100% wanted me to be there, to the point where I hadn't bought a ticket for a tour. And then one came up in my vicinity that somebody else was trying to get for her and her friend. And then the friend didn't want to go, and I got the spare ticket. And then I ended up there, and I got a huge rush of energy. I needed to be there. And that's still not clear to me as to what that was all about, actually. I don't know sometimes at the time, but it does become clear at a later date, or I'm just picking up pieces of the energetic puzzle within me. I just knew I had to go, went, showed up, it all happened, and then off I go to the next place. But we have to be out of the mind space with a lot of this stuff, because it is being received and interpreted by the heart space on a level that's beyond our human mind and understanding, actually, in a lot of it. So it's kind of almost better to let it be that, because then you're in the abstract frequency that's outside of any matrix programming to do with all of it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, the mind does not understand. The mind tries to
Mm.
rationalize what exactly happened and kind of put it in some container, some box, somewhere. But it's never
Yeah.
about that. And it's interesting you said that, because with the that it might unlock at a later date, I just had that happen with I was in Egypt for 3 weeks in December, and then I did this water ceremony February 22nd. And when I got in the water, what I heard was, today is the activation, the unlocking of the what started on the 12/12 in Egypt. So it's like, oh, so the codes I received on 12/12, we were in Dendera
Right.
that day, where
Yep.
it was like they had to run through, something had to
Yeah.
happen, and then
Yep.
the final activation had to happen in water on this day. And I had no idea. I just, I was just scheduling this thing on a random day, not even realizing. And later
Yep.
to even realize that day, I was wearing the same dress, the same clothes I was wearing on that day, so it's like
Oh,
all of these
wow.
things are, but had I tried to analyze it, the magic would have been lost. And
Right.
that's what the guides want us to, our higher selves, whoever, whatever we want to name them, this energy, universe, consciousness, source.
Mm.
They're just like, just please enjoy this magic. Be in the magic. It's all
Yeah.
about the magic. And the magic comes
Yeah.
through the heart, not through the mind that is trying to analyze it. And the mind is brilliant. And what we're trying to do is to seduce the mind with this adventure that we're here to live. So then it's
Yeah.
like, I'm on board. Let's do this.
Absolutely. I so resonate with that. And it's, we're constantly having to get ourselves out of our own way. Expert at that, got the t-shirt, many t-shirts. But like, it is about us surrendering and letting go of this old way of being, because we're really relearning a new way to live here. And everything that we've been talking about is about that. And if we could just simply do that without having to make it about anything or anyone, or make it about a thing, or try to understand it, then we're going to actually get the most out of it. Because what could have happened in your experience is that you may have missed that second date whatsoever if your mind wanted to make it about a whole thing, and then boom, done. And then you might have just missed that second cue entirely and
Mhm.
not even had that happen. So it's so important for us to be in the space of openness and allowance and trust in all of this. And I know it's really hard to do in some circumstances, but that's really what we are being retrained to remember ourselves as being. And I think the more we sink into that space and understand that is actually part of our superpower, because then we're running our own magnetics in a better way, and everything is coming to us, as opposed to this kind of like these trendy things that are out there, like trying to manifest this or that, or some of the other sort of spiritual trends. Whereas when we're really connected in alignment and in that heart space, and we're running our magnetics and we're listening outside of this, when we're following those cues in a sensory level on the multidimensional layer of our being, that's when we're bringing in absolutely everything we need without even having to think about wanting it. It's coming in before we even need it. And that is the power of who we truly are in all of this. But we tend to get in the way with the mind that wants to come in and preoccupy, and the behaviors and the emotions and the actions and the programmed ways that we have been brought up in this reality currently. But I truly believe that we're here to undo all that and break out of it. And that's what a lot of my work helps people into that. And a lot of my work is very much about bringing people to that energetic space where they can start surrendering and freeing themselves and liberating basically ourselves into it. Yeah.
I love it.
Mm.
I love it. So you talked about your first book. What is the second book?
Oh, the second book just came out sort of September last year, actually, and it's called A Beautiful Radical Truth, Wisdom from Another Realm. It's a completely channeled book of wisdom. And so it was an experiment where I woke up at 5:30 a.m. every morning, and I channel by writing. I write what I hear. And so I just woke up, did my sacred prayers and presence, started writing, and then never read back on it. I never tried to make sense of it. I just put it away, and the next day I got up and started a new thing and did it again, and then again, and then again, and then again. And then, I mean, I would have done at least 9 weeks worth of writing, I imagine, for an hour or two. Sometimes the flow was more, sometimes it was less. That was fine. But it's an interesting piece because it's very much a channeled wisdom that has energetic exercises for the reader or listener as they're moving through the book. It's pretty intense. Like, you have to take it small chunks at the time. It's not like an easy breezy beach read, which is kind of more like the Inside Hustle. That's more fun and comedy. This is more like really into the energetics of us understanding ourselves in a new light. And so it's been quite fascinating because the feedback from it is coming in slowly because people are taking a long time with it. And I understand, because it took me a long time in the editing process, reading it back over it, I mean, it's just a heavy duty text, but it's so powerful. People have had sort of like pretty significant life shifts after delving into it. So yeah, if that's your jam, check it out for sure. Yeah.
And both of the books will be linked in show notes, and they're available Amazon. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're available on all the
And
platforms really, and they're on audio as audiobooks as well, if that's your
audio,
preference.
that's what I was going to ask, because you have such an amazing voice that people, I'm sure, can't get enough of. So I feel like audio is these days is what a lot of us lean towards. But
Mhm.
I think I would like a copy, both a hard copy and the audio of this new book, because
I feel like you need to
I'm
do
sure
both
when when you are
when
reading
you're doing
it, you're
exercises.
channeling some of it, but then it's nice to have, and books like that, resources like that, it's always nice to have that so that you can almost like write notes and experiences and like come back to and highlight, and it becomes like your I want to use the word Bible, but it kind of becomes that for you
Yeah, it's like a bit of a
to
workbook. Yeah.
navigate, to navigate your life through that. So
Mm.
thank you for getting up every day at 5:30 to bring that through. I
Yeah, it's
It is
interesting.
much needed. Thank you for this
Yeah,
gift for all of humanity that will come in contact with it, and that will be shifted and transformed as a result of it.
amazing. Yeah.
Any advice to anyone who is interested, who receives that message of writing a book? Because a lot of people on the spiritual path or guides for others, they have that invitation, they have that message that they're receiving around writing a book. Any advice you can give, having written two?
I mean, yeah, it's not an easy path. Sometimes it can be kind of easier to write it than others. I mean, the Beautiful Radical Truth was actually easier for me because I just got up and I just channeled it through, and I didn't realize I was writing a book. That was not what my intention was. It was an experiment to see what came through. And then when I read back on it, I put it away, I had it for 18 months, and then something was tugging at me saying, look at that book, look at that work, rather. And I brought it up and I was like, whoa, what is this? Wow. And then I read it and it all kind of strung together. And I thought, okay, this is literally enough words for a book. I just finished the last chapter and it was done. But, it's one of those things where if that's a calling, definitely follow it, because there's other people that need to receive that energy and that frequency in the world. And I really, really, really encourage people to follow it all the way through, because so many of writers will actually write a book and it will never get out there. It like sits in the thing and they just don't actually follow through with the whole production. They may get it written and then it never goes anywhere, or they may whatever. And I know it's a brutal process sometimes when it gets down to it and you've been working on it for so long and you just don't want to do it anymore. And maybe even like the production process is daunting and you don't know how to do it, but you can step your way through there slowly but surely. And it doesn't need to be crazy expensive and it doesn't need to be super problematic, but it is going to take a little tenacity and a little persistence and a little grace with yourself as you navigate that path, because it can be challenging to birth anything into the world, and books are just one of them. So, but sometimes it can all be in such a beautiful flow that it just takes its own lead, and it has its own way with you. It's you got to just run with that energy really, and allow it to flow through you, and allow it to lead rather than you trying to dominate and guide it with your personality self a lot of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Grit and grace. That's what I kept hearing when you were talking. It was like the human
Yeah.
grit and the spirit grace. Like just keep,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
And
exactly
allow,
right.
because in everything we do, it's allowing ourselves to become a channel for something, whether it is telling our own story or channeling or whatever it is. It's
Mm.
being a channel for a consciousness, that a vessel for a consciousness that wants to come into the physical so it can interact with others and ultimately maybe unlock something in someone else, activate
Mm-hmm.
something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so you are in New Zealand now, and that's home.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And from your experiences with the land that you have traveled and all the crazy things that have happened to you, it's when you were talking about it, I kept hearing it's like she's the ultimate grid worker, but she does not identify as a grid worker. It's like it's a different word, and I'm like, I don't know if that word exists in her mind or what that word is, but it's
It's
the
so true
ultimate.
though. Yeah, that's super true, because I don't necessarily identify as a grid worker. It's not what I set out to do, but I guess that is what I do. But the New Zealand energies are very interesting, actually. After being such a traveler and traveling all around the world, and especially to some of the more significant ancient spiritual sites and things, I was surprised that I felt far more profound energetics right here on my doorstep in New Zealand. And I guess after then coming home to New Zealand from being away for so long, and then exploring over all that over the last 8 years that I've kind of been back here, 7 or 8 years, it's been really interesting because New Zealand, I had heard way back in the day from my mum as part of a prophecy, it's the land of first light. Supposedly everyone here is waking up first as part of this prophecy. And part of it sort of like there's a certain amount of it that makes sense. I mean, we don't have any dangerous creatures, so to speak, really. They all got into Australia, and our land is not been as war torn as many of the countries because it's so new, right? So we don't have that level of density that is already in existence on it. So it's kept some of it, although we did have a lot of the indigenous Maori warring on the land for sure. There's been a lot of that, but comparative to like Europe and things like that, where it was just centuries and centuries and centuries worth of wars and different kind of capacities, like it's very different to that. It's a much more youthful and pure pristine frequency that exists here. And I don't know if that's because also I was told by someone that I did a couple of virtual journeys activating at different spaces in New Zealand. She's since passed on, but this woman called Saluntra, who's an amazingly mad as a snake being, but she said that the energy from the crown chakra of the earth, which is currently Mount Kailash in Tibet, was actually transferred to Mount Titiroa in the South Island of New Zealand. And I wrote about this story in my first book, The Inside Hustle. But that the energy exchange would take about 300 years, but that it was transferring because the earth is changing, all of the chakra systems are changing, and things are evolving into the new. And so, when I went down to check that out, because I was like, well, she told me that, but of course I want to check it out in person. I want to know what I want to know myself. And I went down there and I had to helicopter up there. And then I literally saw when I was up there, almost the perfect balance of masculine and feminine. There was these jaggedy dark rocks and then the soft round brown ones, and like on two sides of the sacred lake. And it was really interesting, but the pure pristine frequency that was up there and all of the different multidimensional portals was fascinating. And I sort of really got what she was talking about. It's like a feeling of a frequency more than anything else, but I did visually also see it represented like that. So New Zealand is certainly carrying some codex and some of these sacred sites and stargates here that are pretty profound, I've got to say. And the energy feels much lighter, fresher, and freer than elsewhere that I've done a lot of work. And I often have had some of my most powerful experiences in these spaces. And even like, Castle Hill, for example, down in the South Island of New Zealand, the Dalai Lama called the spiritual center of the universe back in 2003 or something when he visited. So, there's others who obviously have also found the frequency and the resonance quite different here. And I feel like it's very much about these, how people talk about new earth energies or like a new consciousness energies or the consciousness of where we're moving to as opposed to where we've been is sprouting here in various different ways, I believe. And that's what makes the energy really interesting. I'm actually putting together a tour, a sacred site tour, I think for beginning 2026, actually, for some of the beautiful Americans I met in the communities when I was traveling and did that 3-month trip recently. So, but I also do private ones anytime and also run other things as well. If you are interested in exploring any of those energies, just, give me a shout out and I can customize something to you. But there's a lot of amazing sites. It's obviously a beautiful country as well, but energetically, very, very significant, I feel, in where we are moving to on this planet. And for each of us, really truly understanding and connecting with that light within us and our heart.
Thank you for honoring the land and for describing it with so much heart. And I feel that a lot of people are being drawn to New Zealand for new reasons now. And exactly what you discussed. It's beyond the tourist travel, tourist attractions or whatever there is there. It's like a magnet. The earth is drawing us to different places exactly for that. And something actually came through for me about 6 months ago. I did not resonate with the word grid worker and all of that. The word that kept coming through was your earth keepers that go to these places and are stationed in these places for many of us for exactly that reason, to work with the land and to be the guides for others who come and to share where to go and what to do. And in your case, the private tours and the bigger tours, I think so many people will be interested to hear about that, because when we go to places, that's ultimately what we need, is a guide. Who is the guide to guide me through this? Like, send me someone who will. And I was just sharing with my mom yesterday that all the travel I want to do, whether it's Sri Lanka or Turkey or wherever it is, I want to find a guide who is spiritually connected, who will take me and not tell me the stories and how to interpret them, but allow me to be, but still kind of hold that space and open that container and open those portals for me to step through as I'm there to experience the land as as it is. And the other thing I wanted to mention to you is what I've been told is the first thing that shifts on the earth, on the planet, is the water. So when you mentioned the lake up there, I kept seeing it's like something trickling through, and that there is
Yeah.
some source water there that is literally there even right now saying it's literally source water. It's source water. And it's all
Hmm.
about the water. And it's very, very, very important. And it's like light codes in that water. So there's
Hmm.
something happening with what you were seeing. And it's like almost when you said the feminine and the masculine, I was seeing them dance around that water and how it's all connected. And I don't know
Absolutely.
if you we've never discussed this, so I don't know if you work with water, if you have a lot of interest in
I
water.
do.
Yeah,
I
of course you
do.
do. Of
I
course you
do.
do.
And also, equally, that's why we are having these ice caps melting in Antarctica and things, because there's all of this codex that's coming out of the water into all of the waters of the world to help with this process that is happening with each and every one of us. And I love water, and I've always sort of worked with the water. And I also love the work of Veda Austin, who's really pioneering the next work of Masaru Emoto in that space. And I think it's so fascinating about how, you know, water is literally having a relationship with our consciousness, and it's really fascinating to see it brought to life in that way, knowing the beautiful magical qualities of water that, you know, are invoked when we work with it. Yeah, it's a really water is a really, really, really important tool in this journey. And so, yeah, being able to work with it and having access to good pure water as well is really important. Um, yeah, it's interesting because there is so much, I think, emphasis on us. And obviously New Zealand is surrounded by water, right? And we're these two islands in the middle of nowhere, and then we have a lot of water in within it as well. And so it's very much, you know, every sacred site that I've ever been to is connected to water. It's always having an underground cavern. It's always all connected to a waterfall, a natural water source in some way. I've had some of the most powerful activations in those spaces. And equally, then when I've discovered them myself and then brought people back in a retreat situation, we do the energetic activations. And when we're in that space, we're all together combined doing that work, the weather changes completely. The elements come in to support us and make us known that things have shifted. And it's really, really quite enigmatic, evoking experience that you viscerally see and feel like, holy, what is happening here? Something's going on. And that has been very much my experience when working with that. And the water always is part of that, with the rain as well, which comes in. Sometimes I change the weather when I'm doing my work, which is funny, and then it kind of like dissipates again. But yeah, we are so connected to those natural elements regardless, because it's who we are. We're made up of all of it, right? I think we're 99% molecularly water, our body. So yeah, we need to be really mindful about how we're engaging with that, and what we're putting into it, and how we're programming it basically.
And what frequency we are running through, from which consciousness we're operating, which brings
That's
us
right.
back to the heart, because the heart's frequency running through the waters of our body is very different than if we're acting from the conditioning and fear and the traditional ways of operating that we've spent most of our lives living
Yeah,
from.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So what is your hope, vision for, I guess, the foreseeable future? Not
Mm.
100 years, but in our lifetime. My guides
And
always say, surrender it to the spiral of creation, this rainbow spiral portals that you're opening all around the world. Hold your vision. So
mm.
what is Joe's vision and her prayer for the world and for humanity, really?
You know, when I see the most beautiful version of the world that I can envision, It's when everybody is in recognition of their mastery within, who is emanating the magnificence of their light in its most unique and magical ways as a created being on this planet. And we are all then operating outside and far from the current structures that are in existence within this reality right now. And there is space for all of this, you know, but we're in the dream that there's not, and that things can't be supported in certain ways, and that we have to do things the way that we've been taught or told. And, you know, when I think we are all actually not, we're all really showing up and actually living and embodying who we truly came to be, then we are each playing our perfect part in the divine plan. And I just can't even fathom the magic that is going to become of that when all of that is in operation. I mean, it seems like an extraordinarily, incredibly magical experience that would be going on, and so creative and fulfilled and alive and magical and multidimensional in every way, because we're going to be literally living in a space of outside the bounds of the current reality that we're perceiving now. It's going to be well outside of that. And so that's sort of my vision and dream, and why I'm so passionate about helping people remember who they truly are, bringing them back to their mastery, waking up and guiding people to multidimensionally activate themselves so that they can start to click onto all of this and have the courage and the braveness and the boldness to go down the path less trodden, and to really follow that and birth these things out of themselves, and create something new. And that is all going to be really beautifully supported in this next phase. You know, we're kind of in the bridge right now, and it can be tricky because we can feel like that we're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and we can also feel like, oh, you know, I'm doing all this and it's not kind of panning out as I thought, and not being as supported as I thought, and I've, you know, gone down this path. And that's certainly been my experience, but I'm understanding more that it's just about us continuing to pursue that and other things that are going to help until we are over that hump and we can just really let go of some of the stuff, because we are in a process of dismantling these old structures, dismantling the old ways of being, and really coming back into the resonance and operation of who we truly are as a multidimensional being of light that is infinite in nature, and operates outside of just this space and current incarnation that we may be focused into right now.
Thank you so much for putting that so eloquently, so beautifully. And I couldn't agree with you more. Everything you say, I'm like, yes, yes, my truth too. And it is what we're going through this bridge of between realities, and is dismantling within and around, because we're not separate. We're not separate from the elements. We're not separate consciousness. It's all happening within and without. So I know you have a giant toolbox of all things you use with your clients and your retreats and things you share with your friends and family. What is your favorite tool to share that helps others to be in that heart space, in that heart frequency?
Mm. I mean, it's interesting because my favorite kind of tool at the moment
That's
is
fine.
something I call the 369 heart technology tool that comes through. And it's interesting because it balances the feminine, masculine, it balances the past, future, and it balances us above and below, connecting us with the earth and the great central sun. And so I really love dropping into that. And we can actually do a little
Yes,
practice if
let's do
you'd
it.
like to.
Let's do it.
Okay. We've got a few minutes, we can do it.
Is it
All
someone,
right.
if someone is driving, they can't do it?
No, so they probably, you need to close your eyes for this. Definitely just, yeah, if you're driving, pull over, or wait until a later date when you can do it when you're at home in a
Yes.
quiet space,
Pause
you
and
know.
listen when you get home. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and just take a nice breath in, and then just sigh it out. And on your next breath, bringing one hand to the center of your chest, connecting into your divine heart technology, Breathing light into that space, activating it with your intention, and breathing out slowly. Twice or 3 times as slow as you usually would. And breathing in, breathing light into your heart, connecting to that spark of light within you, the spark of light that you are. And breathing out gently. Again, twice or 3 times as slow. And another one of those. Connecting to that spark of light and breathing out slowly. And then just thinking about something that makes you smile with the next breath. Could even be a crazy meme that you saw today, or it could be a beautiful little fluffy animal. But just allowing yourself to start activating the heart a little more with these uplifting feelings of sort of joy, love, appreciation, a little bit of comedy in there maybe. But as you breathe and keep that thought of whatever it is that makes you smile, and if you've got it, you will know it because you will physically be smiling right now. Is starting to activate that heart a little more. And then from this space, and we're feeling a little more centered and grounded in our being, we've felt our energy drop down into the center of our chest and be anchored here. We're going to use figure 8s of light now to create the 369 heart technology technique. And so we can start immediately by throwing one cord of light, a beautiful, it is space. I want you to throw the crystal back up, and you can throw it from the front. It can come up through the back of your heart actually. So you've got one loop basically going now down from your heart down to the center of the earth, looping through the crystalline core, coming back up through the back of your heart and starting a flow of energy, bringing in light from the center of the earth, connecting us with the heart of Gaia in this moment. And then next we're going to loop it as a figure 8, right? So we're going to continue that loop, but up from our heart now, right through into the cosmos to the great central sun, looping it through the great central sun, and then bringing it back down through the back or front of your heart, whichever way you ended up moving through. So you've got a figure 8 of light basically now with your heart in the center, going down to loop through the heart of the earth and going to loop through the heart of the cosmos and the great central sun. And you just allow that thread of light to continue with momentum while you just harmonize the energies, bringing light from above and below to you now. And we're going to leave that cord running. And then we're going to invoke another figure 8 of light, right? This time we're going to do from to our left and to our right, which is going to harmonize our masculine and feminine sides. So just imagining another cord of light. You may like to envisage gold or silver or platinum, whatever comes to you. I like to make it light, but I love using any of those as perfect for this process. And so just throw out a cord of light far into your left, right far into the left-hand side, and then allow it to loop through in the back of your heart. And then you're going to loop it right out to the right-hand side. Allow it to loop back through your heart. And so you're just reaching out and allowing this cord of light to connect through all of your masculine and feminine energies, all of the left and the right sides of you, to bring that into balance now. And so allowing that cord of light to flow through a few times, just sending it right out into the ether, and it may be connecting to all different feminine and masculine sides of you in various incarnations. And whatever it is doing, it is balancing these sides of us right here, right now, and bringing us further into our center. And so lastly, for the 9, we're going to now throw a cord of light that is going to go in front of us and into the back of us to balance our past and our future. And so choosing another color in your cord of light, or the same if you're just working with one. Now choosing to throw out a beautiful silver cord of light for me, right out into the front of me, sending it right out into the distance to connect into all future parallel realities where I am operating from in this moment. Allowing that cord of light to flow back through the center of my heart and then out through the back of me, right out into the past, connecting through all past incarnations and harmonizing it with this energy. and then bringing it back through the center of your heart again, looping it through the front. So as each loop of the figure eight happens, we're bringing beautiful harmonization with that energy of the infinity, with that energy of the balance of the eight, and harmonizing our past and our future together now. And so as you have this beautiful harmonization happening from above and below, the heart of the earth to the heart of the cosmos, we also have the left and the right through our feminine and masculine energies. And then we have in front of us and behind us for the past and the future. And if you keep all these chords running for a little more, you'll already start to feel yourself dropping into a deeper state of 0 point energy. And from this space, you not only can drop into an incredible place for you to create from, but for you to also alter your inner magnetics or alter your inner landscape, harmonizing everything so that you are in divine alignment from your being. This is a great place to send out new intentions from, to, do a little alchemy of your beingness on specific aspects of you, because you're really in this incredibly deep, heart-centered and multidimensional, 0 point energy that is great for working with anything you need to be working with in the moment. So if you're doing any work on your inner being, it's great from the space. But also it's great just dropping into the space to harmonize these aspects of yourself so that you can bring them into action in your daily life in more harmony, alignment, balance, and flow. And so as you take a breath, you breathe out slowly. Sometimes the figure eights will already start sort of moving and rotating into a kind of vortex energy. And if you allow yourself to sit in the vortex of the energy for a moment, as they've all sort of started to move and swing around together, that can also be a wonderful place to just sit in the beautiful, incredible, alchemizing energy from your beingness of all angles, and asking your true self for whatever is needed in this moment to come through for you, to be felt, and to be harmonized through all of these aspects of your being. And so I like to take another deep breath here. I can really feel all sorts of pain in the back of my heart space happening with this one today. So interesting. And then I love to just sort of, allow that to continue as long as necessary if you want. Otherwise, you can just start to bring it down. You just start to bring all of those figure eights closer and closer and closer and closer to you, closer and closer and closer, until you just literally bring them into a little microchip of technology within your heart space that you leave there so that you can use it again next time and keep operating it for your highest and best, and the highest and best of all concerned around you. And so then you just come into gratitude for all the aspects of you and all these different energies of balancing out, and for, of course, your heart and heart technology for guiding the way back to your true self in this moment today. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Oh, thank you so much. And like you said, the back of the heart, that's exactly what I felt, what I'm feeling as well. And it's so interesting. I've never done this. I've never, it is the past. Yeah, it is the
And I
past.
feel like we're all purging so much
It
past
is
right
the
now. It's not
past.
a shock to me
Yeah.
that the back of mine was like,
And
woo.
I feel the expansion happening, but I'm also, I work a lot with figure eights for sending energy and kind of seeing the energy in between spaces, in between people as figure eights. And I teach that as an energy exchange. So it's so interesting that I've never done this where it's the center of the figure eights where all three of them are here. And before you said the vortex, I was seeing the spiral around me because I see spirals everywhere, and it's wild that you called it out, and I was like, oh, I'm seeing it, I'm there too. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's a
And the thing is,
beautiful practice.
from that space, like it's fun. You can play with your multidimensional selves. You can pull stuff in from future selves into that space. You can, if there's past energies that have been coming up that you need to alchemize, you can use it for that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. You can even, I was using it at one point for bringing back youth codes into the body for, from my future self though, in a different incarnation. It was all sorts of interesting ways that you can use the multidimensional space from that. It's a really great grounding centering point. So yeah, play around and use your imagination is what I recommend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um,
Okay.
okay, so I think we've been chatting for a long while, and I feel like
Yes.
you left the audience wanting to revisit and take notes on all of this because there was so much wisdom and so many hidden gifts in all of this. And of course, you leave all of us wanting to read your story from the first book and the second book, that channel wisdom that you brought through. But I would like for you to share with the listeners, where can they find you and what are some of the ways they can work with you? And everything will be included in the show notes, but if you could share with
Thank
us.
you. Yeah, you can find, my books, A Beautiful Radical Truth and The Inside Hustle on Amazon or most, online retailers, and on Audible, of course. And you can find me always at joannawalden.com. On pretty much all social media is at I am Joanna Walden. So it's kind of just really easy. And yeah, I mean, I do one-to-one private coaching. I take people through a signature 12-week program to literally bring them into a completely new state of being. All my work is grounded in heart technology. I run online sort of energy upgrade journeys as guided. I run, as I said, retreats to sacred sites and just generally to help the level of activation. I run ceremonies here in Auckland, but I also do a ton of online stuff wherever you are in the world. So, I also have some online courses on there. I mean, I do a plethora of stuff. Just go in there and have a little, have a little look and see what resonates. And you can always email me at hello@joannawalden.com. If you have questions, you want guidance, you want to know something, I'm always around to take questions and things as well. So yeah, I also have a free consult if anybody wanted to book that. You can do that from my website as well and just have a chat and see if it resonates to work with in person and what we might do together. But yeah, I'm always doing different things. So keep an eye on my social media. I'm usually up to date on there. And thank you so much, Kat, for having me on the show. It's been such a wonderful conversation. I've had such a great time with you.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. It's incredible to follow your journey because you truly live this life guided by spirit, guided by the heart. And I am so grateful that you agreed to come and have a chat with me and share some of your journey, your life, your gifts, everything
Thank
with the
you.
listeners. And yes, please visit Joe's website, give her a follow, and thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.